Okay, equations with parentheses is what the main topic is with lesson 31. Now we've already talked about how we solve equations, and on this slide I have that written down. So let's start here by looking at the first check mark. First of all, if there's any simplifying to do on both sides of the equation, we have to do that. So for example, if I have an equal sign and say there's some like terms over here or some like terms over on that side, I need to simplify them. The second step is once we've simplified both sides of the equation, we want to get the variable on one side. So in other words, if there is a variable on both sides, so say you have x's on the left side and an x on the right side, we want to pick on the small one by adding or subtracting and get the letter all on one side. And finally, the third step is we want to isolate, or in other words, get the letter by itself and solve the equation. Okay, in example 1 here, we're going to go through the same process, except that we have this new type of equation, which is going to involve parentheses. Now, notice on the left side, is there any simplifying that we can do? And the answer is yes. We can use the distributive property to simplify or get rid of the parentheses. So let's do that. So on the what's right in front of the parentheses? Well, we see we have a negative 3. So I'm going to distribute the negative 3. We're going to take a negative 3 times this, and we're going to take a negative 3 times that. So I have a negative 3 times 2 minus a negative 3 times c. And that's equal to c minus 2. Now on the right side, notice that those are unlike terms. There's nothing I can simplify. So let's continue simplifying on the left side. So multiply, multiply. So I have a negative 6 minus, let's see, a negative 3 times c is a negative 3c equals the c minus 2. Now, since I've doubled up on signs here, I can simplify that. So I have a negative 6 plus 3c equals c minus 2. Now, as I've been emphasizing in class, let's write each side of the equal sign with the term that has the letter first. So I want to have that positive 3c first. So I have 3c. Now is this negative or positive? It's a negative 6 equals c minus 2. Now I've simplified both sides of the equation. Now the next thing I need to do is get the letter all on one side. So what's smaller? And I'm going to put a 1 in front of the c. What's smaller, 1 or 3? Well, 1 is. So what could I add or subtract a 1 to cancel it out? Subtract 1c. And in doing that, 1 minus 1, they do cancel. So now I have 3c minus 1c, which is 2c minus 6 equals a minus or negative 2. I'm going to put this up above. So now let's isolate, or let's solve for c. They're subtracting 6. Add 6. So I have 2c equals, let's see, a negative 2 plus 6 is 4. Now they're multiplying by 2, divide by 2. C equals 2. So the solution to this then is c equals 2. And we can go back up to the original equation and see if this makes sense. Or in other words, if it satisfies the equation. So if I put 2 in for c here, and 2 in for c here, we want to see if 2 minus 2, which is 0, and what's 0 times a negative 3, so on the left side we have 0, is equal to, let's see, 2 minus 2, 0, so it checks. Okay, in example 2, we're going to do one more example, and we're going to simplify both sides of the equation. Now, on the left side, I need to distribute a negative, or in other words, you can think of that as distributing a negative 1. Now this is kind of a tough concept. You're going to distribute a negative or a negative 1. So you're going to take a negative or a negative 1 times 6c minus a negative 1 times 5 equals 4 times 7c minus 4 times 8, and then I have the plus 3. Notice that this 3 right here has nothing to do with the distributive property since it's being added to the parentheses. Now, something I want to emphasize here. I just had a minus sign out there. So really I could write a 1 there because it really means a negative 1. And we're distributing a negative 1. So now multiply. So I have a negative 6c minus a negative 5 equals a negative 28c minus 32 plus 3. Now continue simplifying. A negative 6c plus 5 equals negative 28c. Now I can combine these, right? They're just numbers. So what's a negative 32 plus 3? That's a negative 29. Okay, we've simplified both sides of the equation now. Now pick on the small one. A negative 28 is smaller than a negative 6. What can I add or subtract to a negative 28 to cancel it? Well, add 28c. And what I end up with then, let's see, a negative 6 plus 28 is a positive 22c plus 5 equals a negative minus 29. Okay, now they're adding 5, subtract 5. So 22c is equal to a negative 34. Now, they're multiplying by 22, divide by 22. And c then is equal to, it's a negative, right? Because a positive divided by a negative, or a negative divided by a positive is negative. Now just reduce 34 over 22. Divide by 2. And I get a negative 17/11. Now a little harder to check that one, but it should check out. Or if I was in doubt, I would place a negative 17/11 in for C and see if it does check out. All right, so this is called equations with parentheses and solving equations with parentheses.